Hello and welcome back to Freedom Tech Friday, a weekly live and interactive show hosted on the Ungovernable Misfits X, Noster, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch feeds. We go live for 1 hour every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. UK time, but you can also catch up later on the Ungovernable Misfits podcast feed. On Freedom Tech Friday, we like to cover the latest news, trends, and topics for anything relating to freedom technologies. That could be anything from Bitcoin and Monero, encrypted messengers, privacy tools, and everything in between. Essentially, if there's a news item, tool, or topic that can help you take back some control in today's digital panopticon, we want to talk about it. My name is Q&A, and I am head of customer experience at Foundation, where we build Bitcoin-focused sovereignty tools. As always, I am joined by my good friends Max, the head honcho of the Ungovernable Misfits Empire, and Seth, who is COO at Cake Wallet. This is a live and interactive show, and you can help steer the conversation by commenting live, pre-submitting your questions or topics on socials, boosting the show via Podcasting 2.0 apps, sending tips, or just sharing the show with your friends. Top support for the last show about our Freedom Tech plans for 2026 comes from Late Stage Huddle, who sent 6,006 sats and said, "Keep up the good work, boys. Max and Q need to burn some barns." We very much have been doing that. That's why we weren't here last week. Apparently, they aren't working hard enough. Although Max's explanation of his plumbing work sounds like a cartoon where you plug a hole and another leak begins in another room.
It is a bit like that.
Thank you for your support, as always, Late Stage Huddle. So without further ado, I've seen you both hopping in and out. I don't know whether you're trying to troll me or whether there's a problem with the stream, but welcome back
Bit
again.
of both.
Seth, how's it going?
I am here. Apologies for the high-quality, terribly nasal sicko Seth warning, but consider it a privacy-related voice masking. So y'all get to enjoy that. Maybe Q and Max can strip out my voice and give you just the Max and Q experience on the recording to spare your ears. But yeah, I'm here. And yeah, the stream was like forcibly removing me from it over and over again until I started my browser. It was very weird. Never seen that happen before.
Let's hope that does not persist, because I don't want to carry the show on my own. I need to lean on you guys. How about you, Max? Are you well? Are you sick? Are you stressed? Are you plumbing?
Sort of a little bit of everything, but nothing too much. Pretty happy. Very bullish at the moment on the markets and everything. So that's all looking good.
Are you
just pretty excited about
again?
it all.
You got to turn your computer the right side up. Max.
I don't usually care, but I had some materials to buy, like quite a lot of materials to buy, and everything's got a bit more expensive. But other than that, very, very good. Very happy, thank you. And looking forward to learning about the topic we got today.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Before we dive in, a couple of housekeeping stuff. Obviously, we weren't here last week, so apologies to the diehards. We just couldn't make it work. Max was washing his hair. Seth had to brush his dog, and I was busy. No, I'm joking. It was just like chaotic schedules, predominantly driven by me. So you can all blame me, folks. But we're back. We're not going to make a habit of it. And I did genuinely miss doing the show. It was a shame. I went into the weekend on a downer.
Yeah, it does. It's a nice way to end the week, I think.
It is. Hello to Noster Gang in the Noster chat, of course. And also hello to Matt Baker that says, "Hey guys, tell us more about the forklift racing thing you spoke about last week. Ridiculous, but a good idea. Also, I'm a forklift engineer." Well, there you go, Matt. If you could be a forklift engineer / race technician or something like that, if you want to get your hands dirty into forklift racing. I'm not sure we
I feel like I missed something.
I think, well, I was a bit confused by Matt's comment, but weren't we discussing
this was on the brief?
Yeah,
this was on the Bitcoin brief.
So do you want to give Seth the TLDR, Max?
So I pitched to Q&A because he was talking about motorsport and doing like an ungovernable motorsport thing. And I said, well, we're a bit too poor to do that, all of us, to do proper motorsport because it's fucking expensive. What about forklift racing and doing it across like different stages. So you have part racing, then you've got something where you've got to pick up something that's very awkward, move it somewhere, place it somewhere. Then you've got to do the next stage and do it very like greasy and dirty and like the opposite of F1. You have to drink a beer out of the can. You have to be smoking a cigarette. Ideally, when you go around a corner, like if you could spit, that would be perfection. And just really bring it down a couple of pegs, and that can be the ungovernable racing. And I thought this was brilliant. And Q informed me this is already a thing in Germany.
It's already a thing. Man.
Yeah, but they tune them up to 1,000 horsepower, and
Yeah,
it's absolutely fucking mental. So I don't know, it's something to aspire to.
So y'all both already own forklifts, or am I?
I
feel like I'm missing out here.
I wish I had a useful one because I like the idea of just having a forklift and needing one, but unfortunately I do not.
I've spent a lot of time on them and I love them. I don't have one at home because, again, I haven't got a use at home, but I've got access to them and they're just fun. And so are telehandlers and all, like anything big, anything like that is just as fun as it seems when you were a kid. Like when you're a little boy and you're like, oh, fucking hell, I want a tractor or a combine. It's fun.
Yeah, and look on the bright side. If the market keeps going away, at least we've got another option other than McDonald's now. We can
there you go. Yeah, it'll be our other career. Quit podcasting, pick up forklift racing.
I might do it.
Anyway, as always, we have digressed. But today we are going to talk about probably quite a big elephant in the room, Apple.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that anybody can dispute the fact that they make some incredible hardware and also some software that's difficult to ignore, particularly in 2026. But today we want to ask the question, is the grass actually greener? We all know that Apple comes with trade-offs, and we're going to dive into some of those. And is it worth throwing yourself into the walled garden just so you can have all the nice shiny things that just work? TM. In the early days, Apple built their entire brand around privacy. They had billboards, TV ads. I think one of the quotes was, what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. Not sure whether that's still the case, but maybe we can dive into that today. But in the Freedom Tech community, Apple often gets dismissed as no better than, or being no better than Google. So today we're going to ask, is that fair, or are we letting perfect be the enemy of good? For millions of people, probably tens, if not hundreds of millions of people, the iPhone is like the only default choice, particularly in the Western world. And something like a switch to Graphene OS or even stock Android seems outside of the realms of possibility because people find themselves so entrenched. So the real question is, can a properly configured iPhone provide meaningful privacy, or is it all kind of just theater? As always, I'm sure the answer lies somewhere in the middle, but that's the point of today's conversation. We're going to dive into that. But obviously, I'm not going to answer this alone. And before we get into it, I've got to ask, gents, and be honest, do either of you own or have use of an iPhone, even as a secondary device? I promise there will be no judgment from me.
I can confess, yes, I use a lot of Apple products along with other devices, but yes, very heavy Apple user.
We're not live. This isn't being recorded or anything, right?
No. Don't worry about it, mate.
Just the three of us. Just between the three of us.
You'll still be a cypherpunk. Don't worry, mate.
Exactly. Yeah, we can clip this out at the end. Yeah, I mean, I definitely used to be a hardcore anti-Apple person after having been an Apple person for a while. They're pretty ubiquitous, especially in the cybersecurity world. So I had gotten into the ecosystem, bailed on them when I started my privacy journey, but I actually primarily use an iPhone now and a Mac, which is painful to say. I know we'll get into a lot of the tuning and caveats and things to keep in mind, but there are definitely pros and cons. And I am an iPhone guy now. That's not exclusive. I also have a Graphene OS phone that I use heavily for different things. But I do primarily use an iPhone now, which is, I know, scary. I'm going to ruin my reputation out here.
Seth for surveillance.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to round out the three of us, it's an iPhone has slowly wormed its way into my life in the past 12 months. I had one for work, also use a Mac for work, and once you kind of start getting those little hits of dopamine when things, you get
Once you go Mac, you never go back.
the ecosystem dopamine hits where you're like, oh my god, sending from devices or sharing shit or headphones just work. I finding myself leaning more and more into it, and it, rather than it just becoming a dedicated work device, like more of my own apps are creeping in. So yes, I am also a self-confessed Apple user. So strike me down. But anyway, before we start or continue criticizing, I think it's worth giving credit where it's due. Apple, for all its faults, has actually shipped some features that have cost the surveillance industry real money, I guess. They're not just kind of marketing claims. Some of it actually works. TM, there's that quote again. So let's start positive. Like, what's the one thing or one Apple privacy feature? Doesn't have to just necessarily be iPhone. It could just be the Apple ecosystem, because they are also kind of closely knit these days. That is, genuinely good. Like, we all know they've done some good stuff, but like, what springs to mind when you talk about it that you think, you know what, actually, fair play?
Man,
I would say the tracking is quite a big one.
you like being tracked?
And how easy? Yeah, I like being tracked. It's creepy, but it does things to me. No, I think it's just how easy it is to go through settings, and how you are actually asked if you want to be tracked is an important one, because most people won't go through settings and won't try and optimize for privacy. They're more on the other scale, where they're optimizing to make things as easy and synced and simple as possible. But when you actually are asked, like, do you want this app to track you? You're like, do I want to be tracked by this app? No, I actually don't. And it's so easy just to press no. There's no reason that you would press yes. Yeah, I do want to be tracked. So I think that's probably the biggest.
Yeah, I love that that devs can put a custom message in there for like why they want to track you. It always gives me a chuckle when I read
did
those.
not know
Like,
that.
not
I
most
didn't know
people
that.
don't do it, but you'll get some apps that tell you like, this is what we'd love to provide for you if you will allow this. Basically, like on their
Nice.
hands and knees begging for you to allow them to track you. I think it's hilarious, and I mean, I think there's a lot of things I could point to, but definitely seconding that one that you mentioned, Max, of like every user getting that prompt of do I want to be tracked, not only obviously is good for that app specifically, that users can easily say no. And I think from what I've seen, most users do say no, that they don't want to be tracked, shockingly. But it also just makes privacy front and center for people who maybe aren't thinking about it. Like, I think a lot of people, you just install an app and you don't think about, will this app actually track what I do? But it makes you think with every app you install, okay, this one does want to track me. They also have good stuff in the App Store that tells you kind of what data they're going to try to collect if you allow it. But I do definitely love that. I mean, I think there's a lot of things I could point to here, but I'll leave advanced data protection for us to chat about a little more later. I think that's the by far the biggest one. But the other really cool one that I think doesn't get enough credit is the iCloud Plus private relay, which is basically like a dual hop VPN that you just get by default if you have iCloud Plus and enable it. Super easy. You don't get a lot of the VPN headaches that you can get from traditional VPNs, but you get really good privacy from the sites and services that you're using. And it, in a very Apple way, it just works. And I've enabled it for friends and family, and they don't ever have any problems with it. And they get better privacy as a result. And that one, if you talk to people like in the VPN industry, like I've talked to Carl, the founder of Obscura, like a lot of the stuff that they've done from an engineering perspective there is very novel and very, very good. Of course, not open source. They start to verify a lot of the claims, which I'm sure we'll get into as well. But that's another one of those kind of like easy privacy wins that doesn't really help Apple, but helps you.
Yeah, they're two really good call outs. The pop-up where you get about the app tracking, I like to think of that as like the reverse of like website cookies, where it's like you go to, we're also conditioned now that you go to websites and you have to like click through 3 or 4 pop-ups to get the website to work and just like not be annoyed. And people have just like, they've kind of conditioned themselves to just like be ready to click through a load of things that they're never ever going to read, just to be able to use a specific website. Whereas like the privacy thing is like the reverse of that, where it's like, oh, hang on, it's simply yes or no button. Do I want to be tracked? Like it's quite a binary question, and it's very easy to just say no and make them think in a positive way about their privacy. And it's like, yeah, I definitely commend them for that one. And these are all things, I guess, that kind of Graphene OS users like kind of take for granted, that are like off by default because of the way that it's built. But having it surfaced in such a way that's easy to protect your privacy with a single tap on an app by app basis, or I believe you can just turn it off so the apps are not even able to ask the question, like a blanket ban, I think is definitely a positive one. The other one I wanted to go on, Max. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, over the last couple of days, I've been spending some time with family members, like mainly boomer types, very like non-techie, sort of a couple of years ago would never, ever bring up privacy. And at least 2 of them have sat down with me and been like, how do I run a VPN? Like, I do need one, don't I? Like, how do I do this? Like, which one's the best one? And they're actually coming to me, asking me for things like that. And I think that that is a big part of like the whole shift in people's thoughts with everything to do with privacy, just like generally lack of trust in governments and these large corporations. And then these type of things where it's like bringing to the forefront that you are being tracked. It's just bringing it into their face, like you are being tracked unless you press no, I don't want to. And all the other apps that you haven't done this with will be tracking you. And I just thought that was interesting because they're people I've tried to like annoy about privacy and Bitcoin and all this stuff for like nearly a decade, and they're bringing it up now. So I don't know whether that's linked. I don't know, but it's just an interesting data point.
Yeah, definitely. The last one I want to commend them for is the hide my email. Once again, in true Apple style.
Oh yeah.
For people that don't use things like Proton aliases or Tutor aliases or any of the other like services where you have to go and configure it yourself. Like it's literally a keyboard tap on an iPhone now, that when you're signing up for a service, it will say hide my email. And that again is only a positive thing for somebody who doesn't have the will or desire to go to any of these third-party services to set that up to get the privacy. They can still get that and just have everything auto forwarded to their max@icloud.com or whatever their Apple email address is. So again, I think they did a really good job there in true Apple style. All right, time to do some hating. Apple, as we've just established, they do some genuinely good stuff, and what they're very good at is making it intuitive and simple so that you don't have to, leverage third-party services. But I don't want us to get too carried away. There are obviously some serious problems that the marketing, I guess, conveniently leaves out. So I guess gloves off. What's the Apple privacy failure that bothers you the most? I'm sure there's probably many. So let's start with the obvious and the big ones. Hand it to you first, Max.
I think just that a lot of it is just trust me, bro. That's the big one. It's like it's all good in theory, but it's closed source. You can't actually know. Obviously, it'd be terrible for their reputation if it ever came out that what they were saying isn't true, but also it would probably be terrible for their business if they didn't scratch the backs of and tickle the balls of people above them. So that's my biggest one, is like, I would never do anything with an Apple device that is life or death, that is like extremely important to me. I would do what would most things.
Define, give us some examples.
Anything to do with information that would be a problem if it got out. Anything to do with like Bitcoin transactions, like more personal stuff that can be linked to me, anything to do with like finance, or just stuff that like people could then trace me with, or that kind of stuff. I think, like, I would never do any Bitcoin stuff on an Apple device personally. I just don't do it. I separate things out because I just don't trust it enough.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say that this is the big one for me, is that it's the black box effect, right? Like, they have all these awesome promises, awesome features like ADP, which we're going to get onto in a minute. But it's just like, you just cannot verify the claims. And it is, like you say, quote, trust me, bro. Now, I probably don't have a reason to believe that they are falsifying their claims. I believe that they would probably be setting themselves up for one of the biggest lawsuits of all time if they were and they got found out. But that's not to say that people haven't lied in the past, and very big companies haven't lied in the past. So it's always just that niggle that's in the back of my head that, again, similar to you, Max, that makes me second guess, how much information or how much of my life I'm willing to put into this kind of this ecosystem. Like, for my work stuff, like, that's 99% public anyway, I'm like, yeah, so what, who cares? I just want the convenience. But like, there are certain limits. But Seth, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the biggest problem I have with Apple is that they have really good stuff available. And we've touched on a lot of it. Advanced data protection is another really good example. But almost all of it is off by default. Like, one of the really powerful things with Graphene OS is you just install it and you're getting almost always the best privacy and security you could get. And then you have to disable some of that if you want more compatibility with things, or if you want to install the Google Play services, stuff like that. You can kind of go from the opposite end of defaults. Whereas Apple, they do a few things by default. Like we talked about, the app tracking, that pop-up is something that every user will get, even if they don't enable something in settings. But like, a lot of the iCloud Plus stuff is something you have to enable once you've subscribed to iCloud Plus. ADP is never enabled by default, and it's not like pushed to use. Like, the one thing that will is the iCloud Plus stuff. Like, there's a clear place for that when you're looking at your iCloud Plus subscription, and it'll explain what the things are, and that stuff's much better. But ADP is pretty hidden, and it's just like a weird button at the bottom of a settings page that doesn't tell you what it does until you click on it. So I think that's the biggest problem for me. And obviously, closed source does matter, but we also have a lot of good evidence that they do actually, like, their technology actually does work. An example of that is the UK wanted them to put in a backdoor, and they said, we'd rather just not have it supported in the UK, which I think we can quibble over whether that was the right move or not, but it does show that they aren't willing to put in a backdoor for just any government, which is encouraging. And the same goes for a lot of the default end-to-end encrypted iCloud stuff that they haven't given over to law enforcement in case of that have happened in the past, or unencrypting an iPhone locally, like they could have in the past as well. Stuff like that. So there is some good evidence that they are sticking by the stuff that they build, but we never like something that, I mean, it's not freedom tech if you can't verify anything, much less if you don't have full control over that thing. So yeah, I think that's the biggest downside, but I also just wish they would turn a lot more of this stuff on by default. Even ADP, like, I think that they could really do that as a onboarding thing, offer that to users, and use social recovery, which is one of the options of ADP, to enable that without having to do this long string backup kind of thing.
It'd be nice. It'd be nice just thinking about the setup of an iPhone. If you could have maybe like 3 different levels, like, if you're saying like an iPhone is generally set up to not be private, and like the settings are not how we might want it, but it's probably a lot easier to use and just works better. And then Graphene is like very much the other side. It's everything's kind of on by default. Maybe there could be a way where it's like 3 different options when you're setting it up. Like, do you want extreme privacy, middle road, or don't care at all kind of thing? Because when you start taking things to the extreme, like I went through all my settings a while ago, and I was like, turning everything off, and then I was meant to be somewhere. I was like, oh, you're meant to be there at 11 o'clock. Why are you an hour late? I'm like, I'm not an hour late. It's fucking 10 o'clock. And they're like, no, it's not. And I look, and it's because I've turned some setting off so that it couldn't track me. So my phone didn't know what time it was. And then I get into my car and I'm trying to drive and I can't actually connect to Google Maps because I don't have that on. And so then you start scaling things back a little bit. And if it was all out the box, the most private you could be, I think most people would get the phone and be like, oh, this is shit, I'm going to buy something else. And then they'd lose money.
Yeah, I to Jordan, to your comment, yeah, I'm trying to fix the chat. We can see it on the back end, or I can at least, but it seems that it's not coming through on the broadcast. So apologies, guys. If you are commenting on Twitter or YouTube or anything, we will see it. I'm trying to put them up on screen, but it doesn't seem to be working today. So I'm not sure why, but we will see it. If you have questions or comments. There's one here from Thundercross 1981 on YouTube that says, Apple stuff is for pretentious wankers. My brother bought a new phone and then had to buy a new desktop because it wasn't compatible. Not sure on the details there, obviously, but seems a strange one. I'm guessing they might have had a very old Mac OS version on their desktop or something. Who knows? But yeah, and then Jordan also said, after taking Expatriotic's advice and installing Manjaro, I might go full Apple now. So it sounds like he's had a bit of fun there.
Linux is probably the greatest contributor to people going full Apple, I would say. It's definitely, it was part of my journey, was being Linux only for a few years and flipping tables enough times. So I was like, okay, I just need to use a Mac for work. Again, I'm not using it for personal stuff generally, but for work.
Vibrant, I've seen your question. I'm going to bring it up towards the end, just so we don't go too off topic, but thank you for posting. All right, so we've established that they do some good stuff, they do some bad stuff, but clearly there are millions upon millions of people that are okay with whatever trade-offs, or, well, they're either okay with them or they just are not aware of them. So for those millions and millions of people who are going to run an iPhone regardless of the trade-offs, what tips and tricks can we give them to actually, make the best of, I don't want to say a bad situation, because like it's a flagship phone at the end of the day, but a properly configured iPhone, in my opinion, is probably going to be better than a poorly configured Android from a privacy perspective. Obviously, I don't include Graphene OS in that. So if someone handed you their iPhone and said, I've got 5-10 minutes, help me make this more private, what are you going to do? What's the first tips you're going to give them or help them install? Seth, hand it to you first.
Yeah, I think the two big ones that I would harp on, one would be the iCloud Plus stuff that we've already talked about. Apple has a lot of really good like family plans that you can just add anyone to. It doesn't have to be family members for this stuff. So if you use iCloud for a good bit of stuff, specifically if you use ADP so that you can use it in an encrypted way for most things, you can do an iCloud Plus plan, do it for family, and then add like close friends or family to it. And they can get the private relay, they can get all of the hide my email, they can get all those things that we've discussed. And those things are just like a one-tap enable in the iCloud settings, in the settings app.
Sorry, just to cut in there, because I haven't actually messed around with iCloud Plus. I've not paid for it. I've already got hide my email functionality, so that doesn't seem like a paid benefit. So other than the VPN, what else does iCloud Plus get you? I'm guessing obviously extra storage.
Am I wrong? I thought that stuff was iCloud Plus.
I don't think I pay anything to Apple.
No, I don't either. Oh, but do you have an upgraded amount of storage? Because that's paying to them, isn't it? Maybe you get it lumped in if you do that or something.
Good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't remember seeing any big bills going out of my bank to Apple, but you never know.
No, I just confirmed iCloud Plus is required for private relay and for hide my email.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you
might have small amounts out on my bank account.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you've just paid for some other iCloud thing,
and it's all
and you're
bundled
getting
in
it as a part of that. But yeah, even Apple's own iCloud user guide says that. Says that that's what you get with iCloud Plus premium features.
It says you get a custom email domain as well. I didn't know about that. Is that something you use, Seth?
I did not know about that. I just saw that here too, and I'm like, wait, I can use a custom domain name. I mean, one thing I want to clarify for people too, you don't have to do like an iCloud.com email or even a custom domain name. You can just use your own email address with an Apple account. Like I use a Proton one. I intentionally don't use an alias, but I use a different address from my Proton. You don't have to use an iCloud.com one. I don't like personally. I probably wouldn't use my own domain with Apple. But yeah, that's an interesting again one that I just did not know about. There's a few things in here that I didn't know about, but
yeah,
I'll have to
interesting.
look into that before.
So what else? So we've done iCloud Plus. You also mentioned ADP. That's going to be a big one, I think. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. So I can unpack that a little bit. So Apple has this functionality that they launched a few years ago called Advanced Data Protection. It sounds a little scary. All it actually is that instead of putting your private keys for your encrypted data on Apple servers, which is the default for iCloud, it's not for all data. There is a lot of data that's actually end-to-end encrypted even without enabling ADP. But for like all of your iCloud stuff, your message backups, all of that sort of thing, by default, all those things are stored on Apple servers, encrypted, but with Apple's encryption keys. ADP flips that on its head, and you get your own encryption key. So the vast majority of data on your phone or using Apple services or being stored in iCloud gets encrypted end-to-end with your keys. So even Apple themselves cannot access that data no matter what. That is a huge shift in the privacy provided by Apple. And really, ADP is the only thing that makes me okay with using Apple. If they did not have ADP, I would not be using Apple primarily. But the fact that I can have the vast majority of my stuff, and I'll get into the caveats in a second, encrypted by default means that it's actually reasonably good overall, and it's very simple to do. For those of you who use Bitcoin, you're used to backing up a long string of characters. Basically, when you enable ADP, you can do two things. You can either back it up using a recovery key, which is just a string of characters, which you can stamp on steel. You can use a bunch of different like normal Bitcoin backup techniques to save that. Or you can do essentially social recovery. So you can add people as recovery contacts, and those recovery contacts can help you to get back into your account if you get locked out. Obviously, the recovery key is going to be the safest generally because you're not reliant on someone else's account security for your account security. But one thing that I really like about the social recovery is I've been able to, with their permission, but enable ADP for friends and family and for my wife and others. It doesn't actually impact any of the usability of their Apple account. But then just do social recovery with myself or with someone else, like their spouse or something, and they get just really good end-to-end encryption for the vast majority of their data in the Apple ecosystem with no real hit to usability, which is an impressive feat that Apple's pulled off.
I have a question there, Seth. What about if somebody hasn't used ADP, they're running as a normal person would, and then they start using it? What happens to all the data, their iCloud photos, their whatever else they're sharing with iCloud? Does that now get removed or like no longer accessible, or is what has already been accessible using Apple's keys still always going to be accessible with Apple's keys?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, one thing that I would assume is if you haven't used it in the past and you start enabling it, your data may have been seen and looked at before that point. Obviously, it shouldn't have been, but it could have been. So I would kind of assume that it's been seen. But my understanding is when you enable ADP, everything gets re-encrypted. Basically, the encryption key gets changed to your new self-owned encryption key for the things that get encrypted. So from that point forward, you should be good. But it's the same as like if you had posted your photos in Google Drive and then you delete them and you start using Inte or something. Yeah, that's great. But Google could have been looking at them the whole time. So you should kind of assume that they're compromised. But that same data does get re-encrypted using those new encryption keys, is my understanding for that.
Okay. All right. So assume it's been seen, but for things like family photos and stuff, you would hope that now going forward, those would not be viewable in the future, even if they were taken years prior.
Yeah, and like one of the important caveats that people should understand is, like, let's say you use, sorry, hacking up a lung. Let's say you use iCloud Photos or whatever it's called, Apple Photos, and you have a shared album with people. You enable ADP, that all the photos in the album do not get encrypted using ADP. They don't get encrypted with your private key because they need to be shared between all those users. So anything that you share throughout the Apple ecosystem, and I think photos is probably the most important for people to understand, you don't get the benefits of ADP unless those people are also using ADP. This is really easy with like your spouse. Like my wife and I, a really nice part of Apple Photos is we can just instantly share all of our photos with each other the moment they're taken, and that's really nice. But to get the benefits of ADP, I also had to get her set up on ADP. But like I mentioned, it's super easy. You can do social recovery. She has no idea what ADP is, and it doesn't affect her usage of her iPhone at all. So it's one of those things that does work very well, but you do have to know that caveat. If you're sharing photos with a lot of people and they're not using ADP, those photos are not end-to-end encrypted. The same goes with notes and other things that generally would be end-to-end encrypted, but once you share them, they basically get unencrypted, or rather encrypted with Apple's keys instead of your own, so that they can be shared.
With I mean, don't get me wrong, ADP sounds wonderful. Obviously, as the only remaining Brit on the Ungovernable team, I do not have access to it, unfortunately. So I have to make alternative arrangements, shall we say? But there are some stuff, like ADP is not a silver bullet, right, Seth? There are some stuff that it doesn't include, just so people are aware that it's not like it's great, but it's not. It doesn't encrypt literally everything associated with your iCloud account, right?
Yeah, it's like I mentioned, it's the vast majority. There's a short list of things that aren't, but the most important things are the shared content losing end-to-end encryption, like I mentioned, and then contacts and calendars are the two that I made the mistake of assuming were end-to-end encrypted with ADP, and I actually learned from Tux, one of my coworkers, that it's not end-to-end encrypted. So I started using something else for contacts. I already wasn't using Apple's calendar at all. So I didn't have a problem there, but for contacts, I was using that and wrongly assumed that it was end-to-end encrypted. Again, maybe that doesn't matter for you. In theory, that those things are still encrypted, but to Apple's keys, so Apple can see those contacts. But that was like the one caveat that I was very surprised by. I had just expected contacts to be a part of the ADP end-to-end encryption, and it was not. There are a few other things, but those are I think the most important things for people to know of.
Yeah, because things like shared calendars and stuff like that for family, if everyone's using Apple, is actually really, really useful. So it would be nice if that was possible.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, that's where you can use another service like Proton.
Yeah.
You can share calendars between Proton users, and it works quite well. But yeah, that is a surprising one.
Yeah, agreed. We do have a couple of tips come through. We've got Lake Surfer on Noster sent through 5,000 sats. Thank you for your support. We've also, I didn't even know we had this set up, but apparently we do. XMR chat, XMR enthusiast has sent through 0.03 XMR via, it looks like it's notified us by Twitch, but yeah, strange. But thank you for your support nonetheless. I don't know, didn't know we had that set up, but that sounds like a Jordan thing. So thank you very much, Jordan, for helping us get that up and running. Go on.
I was just going to say we've set it up so that the last episode that went live of me reading Keono's first letter, 100% pass through goes to them. So we've also had nearly 500,000 sats on the last episode so far. We're going to try and get it up to 1 million. So anyone who hasn't listened, go there, 100% pass through, and get them some sats, please.
Nice. We had a quick question while we're talking about ADP from, I believe it was Keefy Boy. I'm just trying to find it now. He was asking, isn't Apple's ADP, Advanced Data Protection, the same as Google's Advanced Protection Program? I don't have the full details, but my understanding is that, as Seth has just kind of outlined for us really nicely, is that ADP from Apple is more around kind of end-to-end encrypting your data associated with your iCloud account, whereas Google's APP, Advanced Protection Program, is more around just locking down access to your Google account with, I think you have to use like a physical security key to kind of lock down access to your Google services. I don't think it has a focus on like end-to-end encryption for your personal data within your Google kind of product suite. Feel free to correct me if you disagree there, Max or Seth.
No, you're right. The naming is really confusing. Apple's version of Google's advanced protection program is called lockdown mode, and it's a very different thing. It's basically a tool for high profile individuals, journalists, activists, etc., who are concerned about being targeted with like 0-day malware that's never been seen anywhere else. So it locks down a lot of functionality, and it will absolutely harm the usability of your phone, both on Android and iOS. But it can be good for those individuals that absolutely need it. Yeah, it's called lockdown mode on Apple or advanced protection program on Google, but neither of those have anything to do with end-to-end encryption. They have to do with what functionality is available on your phone and how they handle things like attachments and iMessage, that sort of thing.
Keefy Boys just commented, that makes sense, especially if the UK still allows it, obviously referring to the Google thing. Basically saying it's useless, so we're allowed to have it in the UK. I like that. Jordan has asked a question: does it make sense to roll with a Pixel and use a MacBook? I mean, yes, but I guess it comes down to kind of what you need from both devices. Like if you're using your MacBook for work and you're doing mainly like web-based stuff or stuff that the Mac or Apple ecosystem excels in, sure. And I guess when you say Pixel, you're referring to using a Pixel running Graphene. Knowing you, Jordan, I would say because you're going to be running 80 to 90% of your life on your phone. That's where you're going to have most of the privacy critical stuff, I'll say. So having that on a more hardened operating system like Graphene, if you're okay with the the usability trade-offs of that versus an iPhone, and that not being able to kind of link in a much more seamless way to your MacBook, which you spend the other 20% of your time on, then yeah, absolutely. We're very much a mobile first society these days. So if you can make that work and you don't find that the hurdles of getting, the lack of sync, or I guess the lack of magic that you get when you have an iPhone and a MacBook or a Mac OS device, then yeah, go for it. Like by all means, like I did that for quite a long time, and I still have a
magic
Pixel. Yeah,
magic when it works, but actually, I find often things like the sharing and stuff don't work even when I'm updated across all devices and stuff like that. And so if you can put up with the headaches, I would say that yeah, Graphene OS on a Pixel and a MacBook is way better, especially if you're using what am I trying to say? What's the mail service that we all talk about all the time and use? Proton. If you're using like Proton storage and calendars and stuff, and you have that on both devices, that is better. I mean, because at least at least it's open source and you know what's happening and you are more protected. It's just slightly less usable. Only Macs would ruin the the Apple Magic. Yeah, I know. Well, there must be other people who listen to this who are like try to do stuff and share photos and stuff, and it just doesn't fucking work. Am I the only one?
About from an iPhone to a Mac?
Yeah, iPhone to a Mac using whatever they call it, Apple Magic
AirDrop
stuff, sharing AirDrop. It fucking doesn't work half the time. It drives me mad. So I end up using Telegram to share things. It's fucking retarded.
Such a Max thing to do. Do you have a router that has multiple like guest networks and stuff like that? My guess is the only time I ever have issues is if I'm not on the same network. I'm like my phone's on on a guest network or something like that. If they're on the same Wi-Fi network, then it is you do get all of the dopamine hits when it just works.
Okay, well, I don't, but that is me. So there we are.
We had a question earlier on from Vibrant, and he was asking, what do we think of the File Vault app on Macs? which I guess the TLDR for that one is the native full disk encryption for Mac OS, basically designed to encrypt the entire startup drive, essentially. I don't think it's enabled by default. I personally use it because why wouldn't you? It's just an extra password to look after. So yeah, for me, it's an obvious thing to use. What about you guys?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, sorry, I spaced out a little bit there. Sorry, what was the question again?
What do you think of File Vault, the
yeah,
built-in disk encryption? Like, it seems like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a win. I really thought it was enabled by default, but I think I am remembering now that I had to enable that after I set up this Mac. But it's been a while since I set one up. But yeah, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Again, if you can either use your iCloud account itself to keep the encryption key, which not great, or you can do a recovery key similar to ADP. Which
Nice.
again, those of us using Bitcoin are familiar with keeping
Oh,
something private.
Oh yeah. I want to take a quick step back. Seth, earlier you're talking about lockdown mode, and you mentioned that enabling that would be detrimental to the usability. It's not something I've tried. I'm curious specifically, what does it affect in terms of usability, and why wouldn't the average iPhone user want to enable that?
Yeah, I mean it's a very aggressive tool. The main things that I have noticed that it can break quite badly is a lot of stuff in your browser, because it greatly limits like even font loading sometimes, and a lot of the functionality that basic websites rely on. It can break. And remember that on an iPhone, even if you're using something like Brave, you're still using the underlying WebKit engine that your iPhone has, and it can disable things as part of lockdown mode to keep you safe, but that really kind of hurts usability there. The other place was really in messaging. Like attachments won't work. You'll be very limited in what you can do. Sending and receiving photos is often disabled or broken intentionally. It basically disables a lot of fairly basic functionality because those are the threat vectors that 0 days happen in. A lot of them are iMessage specific, for sure, but also things that happen in your browser. Honestly, I haven't used it for a little while because it was so aggressive. It was a little too much for me. But I know people who use it every day and just deal with the headache that it brings. I really do think it's not something for everyone. And it's only something for people who have a real reason to believe that they will be targeted with a very specific attack to compromise them on their iPhone, which may be some of you listening, but I would more think of that as like execs at big companies, as journalists or activists from totalitarian countries who would be targeted with something like Pegasus. Those are the people who can really benefit from this.
Interesting. Okay, and to be clear, it's available to everybody, but obviously, as you're saying, it's probably not appropriate for most. But you don't need any kind of special account or payment system or anything like that. It's just a default toggle you can turn on.
Yeah, it's just in privacy and security. And if you scroll all the way down, you can see lockdown mode at the bottom, and it'll tell you kind of what would break and change if you do that. There's a learn more that takes you to a support page that tells you all about what it is, how it works, what gets changed or broken by it intentionally, that sort of thing. And it's a long list of things that change. So definitely make sure that it's something you need. I mean, you can just enable it, and if you don't like what it does, you can just disable it. It's not something that like has some irreversible effect on your Apple account or something. It's just device specific, and is probably worth trying if you think you might be targeted by something like that. But I really don't think it's something that just the everyday average Joe needs to enable. ADP, on the other hand, everyone should enable. There's no reason you should not be using that, unless you're in the UK. Sorry.
What does the social recovery look like for ADP?
So I've never actually had to do the recovery. I've done the setup. My understanding is that there's a timeout, and then the recovery user is able to basically accept. It comes in as basically an iMessage message. Like it all works through iMessage, but then they have the ability to help you recover your account. But I haven't actually done the recovery yet. That's one annoying thing that like I love about Bitcoin is you can just test recovery anytime. There's not a way you can say like I want to see what this is like to recover. The recovery key itself is obviously a lot more straightforward because just when you go to log in to get access to your data, you have to enter that recovery key. But the other one, I'm not exactly sure how that would work, but it being Apple, I'm assuming it would be quite intuitive and straightforward.
Yeah, I would imagine that as well. All right, we do have a hard stop at the top of the hour, and I've got a work call to get to, but that gives us like 8 or 9 minutes to take any questions. So if you are listening live and you've got anything, any questions at all, doesn't have to be related to this, but obviously would be preferable to stay on topic, then please do drop them in the chat. I know the chat is not on screen, but we will see it if you drop it on Twitter or Noster or X, etc. So have a think and let us know if you have anything to cover. I have a pre-submitted one from Anon that asks, and I promise this wasn't me, for those of us without access to ADP, no guesses as to where Anon lives, what alternatives exist, if any, if you're inside the Apple ecosystem? Max, I'll let you take this one first.
I guess just try and use Proton or something like that for as much as you possibly can without relying on all the sort of Apple stuff, and don't store anything there that you worry about too much. I don't really know outside of that, to be honest. Or move the fucking country, get out of that shithole. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean that would bit of a drastic solution, but we'll definitely fix the problem. Obviously I'm probably best suited to answer this one. Would be just you have to do it from an app-based solution essentially. So things like the Proton ecosystem, so Proton Drive for your files, Proton Mail for your emails, Proton has the full suite, Authenticator, Password Manager, the whole lot. Like I lean heavily on their ecosystem. I'm a very happy paying customer, so a lot of mine is leveraged through them. And then what else have you got? That would be the primary recommendation for me, really. Would be the Proton ecosystem. It is great, and I kind of I'm heavily reliant on it without ADP. And then I guess just being mindful of like, when you are using contacts and things like that, that they are not encrypted, and even having something like them in Proton doesn't negate the fact that they live in your phone, because your iPhone is still a phone at the end of the day, and you have to call people on it, albeit sparingly. But those are the kind of main bits of advice for non-ADP. We've got a comment from Jim C on Twitter. Apple's privacy LARP was just a weapon against Facebook. They turned off critical data Zuck needed after he said he wanted to create an iPhone competitor. Purely Machiavellian. I'm not sure on the context there. What did they turn off? Does anybody know?
I think he's just mainly talking about the ask this app not to track. I mean, that was the biggest thing that obliterated a lot of Facebook's targeted ad tracking
and stuff.
Yeah,
30%
so I think
revenue. Wow.
Yeah, that one definitely is the most suspicious one, especially as there's been rumors for years that Apple is going to continue growing their own ad network, and they get to build a nice moat in the iOS ecosystem by just making it very hard for anyone else to collect personal data, essentially, but allow themselves to do it. And that, I think, is probably the biggest concern, is that Apple will continue building this stuff out to give themselves a competitive edge, to end up using their ability to access a little bit more data about you. Again, using things like ADP and other solutions do hide a lot of stuff even from Apple, but it could be something they use in their monopoly to fill the void of all of the people right now that they're cutting out of ad revenue, etc.
Yeah,
$10 billion Facebook cost.
Wow. I mean, Zuck's got it. He can afford it. But another example of that, like the moat, is like the App Store and the whole fight that they've had with the European Union around like opening up that. Like they've done it, but they've done it in such a way that it's pretty much useless, right? Like you still need a lot of money to post in these secondary app stores. There's like a very high bar. It's not like the EU government won and it's immediately turned into an open ecosystem more similar to Android. So we've said some negative things, and we've also said a lot of positive things about Apple, but let's be clear here, like they are always looking to increase their revenue and increase their, like Seth said, the moat that they have to capture and keep users within their ecosystem at the end of the day. So yeah, it's one to be aware of, I guess. The problem is they just make the ecosystem so damn effective. That's the thing that gets everyone, right? All right, I've not seen any more questions come through, so I think I'm probably going to go ahead. Oh, very quick one for you, Seth, from Fiat Demise.
Fiat Demise. Get it right.
Fiat Demise tip 0.001 XMR. Cakewalk question: would it be possible to enhance bird page so that it also works with the new X and TikTok competitor Upscrolled?
I have never heard of this in my life.
Me neither.
I saw the question and I looked it up. I am always hesitant of new social networks that make a lot of claims. If somebody has more info, I'm definitely curious to learn more, or somebody's actually used it. It's something we could definitely support, depending on if they have an API that exposes this sort of thing. But yeah, I'm always a little skeptical of new social networks that claim a lot of things like this.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I've not heard of that one either. But all right, we are almost at time. I'm going to go ahead and close down the show. Thank you to everybody that sent in zaps or XMR chats. Thank you if you posted questions. We appreciate you getting involved. And we will be back next week. And we've already decided the topic. Well, I say we. I have, and the guys that may not know it yet, but we're going to be talking about the latest craze, which is OpenClaw, the personal AI assistant that the online world seems to have gone completely bonkers for. So we're going to jump on a bandwagon. We're going to discuss that this time next Friday. So if you have any questions or any related topics that you want us to talk about while we're talking about OpenClaw and AI, etc., please do get in touch with us via all of the usual social channels. Get your topics and questions submitted ahead of time, and we will be back the exact same time next week. And yeah, have a good one, guys.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Freedom Tech Friday. To everyone who boosted, asked questions, and participated in the show, we appreciate you all. Make sure to join us next week on Friday at 9 a.m. EST and 2 p.m. London. Thanks to Seth, Max, and Q for keeping it ungovernable. And thank you to CakeWallet Foundation and my NIM box for keeping the ungovernable misfits going. Make sure to check out ungovernablemisfits.com to see Mr. Crown's incredible skills and artwork. Listen to the other shows in the feed to hear Kareem's world-class editing skills. Thanks to Expatriotic for keeping us up to date with boosts, XMR chats, and sending in topics. John, great name and great guy, never change and never stop keeping us up to date with mining news or continuing to grow the mesh to Dell. Finally, a big thanks to the unsung hero, our Canadian overlord, Jordan, for trying to keep the ungovernable in check and for the endless work he puts in behind the scenes. We love you all. Stay ungovernable.